We're out at one of my employees' houses right now looking at doing a renovation for them. But one thing that we talked about recently, for a lot of people right now, they bought their first home when interest rates are good and they're locked in right now at a really like favorable low interest rate. The sales market is really slow. So like right now is a really great time to buy if you wanted to upgrade your house. But one thing that I really think people should consider doing instead of like, if they can afford to do it, instead of trying to sell their house in a slow market, especially with a really good low interest rate, is they buy the house they want to move into, um, and then take their like first their starter home and make that a like their first rental property. And so a lot of times when you buy your first home, it's more moderately priced home. Again, if you bought it a couple years ago, you're probably locked in at this really low interest rate. You can spend maybe a little bit, and we're going to talk about this with as far as some simple renovations you could do, but spend a little bit of money, do some renovations, and then again use it as your first rental property. The cash flow, the difference you keep between the two, you can use to help pay the mortgage payment on your new kind of upgraded house, but you're not being forced to sell a house in a bad market at a discount, and especially one that's got a really good favorable rate right now, which you couldn't get if you just bought a rental property.
Right now, y'all's focus mainly, like y'all aren't trying to pick up new renovation business, right?
No, no, not necessarily. Although I did just go under contract on a fixer upper because I couldn't help myself. But so we're going to be doing this renovation and another one at the same time. So it's just we'll do them. We'll do them if they're internal properties that we're going to buy. We're only doing home remodels for friends and family, I guess, right now because it's a lot of work. Or if they're internal ones that we're doing.
We're gonna basically do like a walkthrough now of the scope of the work, and then it's gonna generate a report for us, so we don't miss anything that we talk about here. And you can record for 15 minutes, so
We're going
it's
to
pretty
talk
helpful.
about it, and then AI is going to make the scope of work for us.
Do you do the same thing, like if y'all are doing like a build to rent, like when you get there and like it's like just like an empty site, do you do the same thing with company cam, or is this just
I've
for renovation?
both. I mean, I've done it before on like for example, commercial remodel we're gonna do. The owner asked me to go look at it, and he gave a list of what he wanted to do. So I kind of walked it, put it in company cam, and it generates a nice PDF that we can just provide to them. Mostly we use it so we don't miss anything.
Over communicate.
Like if you owned this house, like what all would you do? Like what's your first go?
If it was going to be just a straight up rental.
Like a straight up rental.
Yeah, it's hard because the house is in decent shape. That's why we don't buy houses like this for rentals, because like I'd want to do the whole thing, but it's like too nice to like do that per se for a rental. But like for you guys, perfect examples. If you guys are going to live here for who knows, maybe just a little bit, maybe a little bit longer, I would say do all the things we talked about, and then that way you can enjoy it for as long as you need to. And then when you go to move and you want to make it a rental, it's going to be a higher value. If you decide to sell it, it's going to be a higher value, or if you decide to rent it, it's going to be a higher value. And so I would do LVP flooring, get rid of the wood paneling, scrape the ceilings, so texture and paint, and then new 6-panel door slabs, just the door slabs, the can lighting like we talked about, and then new I call it hardware, so new light fixtures in the bathrooms. If you decide you want to keep the dang ceiling fans, do new ceiling fans, but cheap ones, right? And then I would do new hardware. So like if you're doing new door slabs, I'd get rid of all the bronze hardware and do like black hinges and black doorknobs, like all those, and new like if we keep the kitchen cabinets, you have nice hardware on the kitchen cabinets. So if you kept them, just new countertops or a new kitchen. So then I'd leave the bathrooms probably as is unless they're a big deal. You guys could always remodel the bathrooms later if you wanted to quickly.
For that scope of work and like y'all's team, like what's best case scenario?
So the biggest thing, like at least in my opinion, is say we were going to do the kitchen cabinets, we'd want to make sure we have the kitchen design, the cabinets ordered and like in stock, and then any other little things that we would need in stock. As long as that's the case and everything's scheduled well in advance, I mean, I don't think it would take more than 2 or 3 weeks to do the whole project start to finish. Yeah. The only thing you'd run into is if you like pick like, I love this faucet. It's like well, you could have that one and it's gonna be here in 8 weeks, or you could have this one, it'll be here today. The cool thing about doing it this way, and I did this a couple times when I first got started, if you're buying a new home, and it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to go from a $150,000 house to a $500,000 house. You can literally go from a $150,000 house to a $175,000 house. But if you're buying the house for you to move into, you can do like a 5% down conventional loan. So you don't need a ton of cash down, especially in a competitive market like right now. You can a lot of times get the seller to pay some of that 5% your closing costs. So it's a low money down payment loan because you're moving into it. If you were going to buy the exact same home as your first investment property, you would have to put a minimum of 20% down. And so the amount of money you need to have if you're going to upgrade and move into that next home is very little compared to if you were just going to buy a rental property. And so I think like buying a house, living in it for a year, 2, 3, 5 years, whatever, and then moving into another house and keeping that first house as a rental property is a great idea. And it doesn't have to be a cheap home. Like the one we're getting ready to do right now is, I don't know what they had it listed for, but if I was going to guess, it was probably a $350,000 house. And again, it's not like if you're just going to buy that as a rental, it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense for them because they don't have to fire sell it. So instead of selling it at a huge discount, they can just keep it as a rental for a couple years and then sell it down the road. Yeah, I think just kind of follow up or reiterate about what we were talking about when we first started was I think that if you can take your first home and use that as your first rental, so like upgrade your house that you're living in, and then keep that first home as a rental. I think that's an absolutely great way to get started. And I also think there's a lot of people out there, especially here like in Central Arkansas, that have had to move either because they needed a bigger house for their family or they've moved out of the area, and their houses are just sitting on the market right now. They've got these low interest rates. They're not being forced to sell them, but they're not selling. I think they're way better off getting them leased up with a good tenant and making some money. They're going to make a little bit of money off of them every month, and then they'll get to keep the house, and so they can always relist them and resell them down the road, more than likely for more money. I personally had that happen years ago it was supposed to be a flip that didn't sell, dropped the price several times, still wouldn't sell, rented it out for a couple years, had great tenants, made some money every month, did a light turnover a few years later, and then put it on the market and sold it for top dollar. And so I think that's a really great option for people. We are starting to do more and more third-party management. So if somebody's here in Central Arkansas in that situation and they want us to take a look at the house for them, we'd be more than happy to look at it for them and walk them through the process of what it would be to have that house as their first rental property. So they're more than welcome to reach out. And thanks again for watching. I'll tell you, I've had 2 examples with people that I know personally recently where it's like they know that we do property management. They wanted to manage it themselves, and I had a phone conversation yesterday about this, and I've got a good friend of mine who I had a conversation with a couple weeks ago, where they want to try to manage it themselves, and then unfortunately they've had like a bad situation where now they're getting sucked into trying to figure out how to navigate this like complicated or hard situation. We do this every day. Unfortunately, we deal with bad situations sometimes like every week, and so it's just like we're very used to it. We're very good at dealing with those situations. For the people that have just one rental property and they're trying to self-manage, it's fine when they're going great. But when there's one of those bad situations, it just takes so much time and energy and stress that they could be focusing on their career and making more money and or other stuff like family or whatever. Instead, they're getting sucked into this like negative situation with a tenant. So I think even somebody with just 1 or 2 rental properties, they absolutely should consider hiring a professional third-party management company. Unless they want to make that like their business and their career, then I think they should go all in on it. And then again, people would just, if they've got houses that won't sell right now, we've got another one where we just built a custom home for somebody. We're almost finished with a custom home. They listed their house, which is like a super nice, beautiful home. But again, the market's slow right now, so they're not getting any movement on the sale. They could have done price reduction and price reduction and price reduction until they dropped it low enough that it would sell. But it's going to be at a big discount right now. Instead, we're literally going to manage the home for them. We'll get it leased up, get a tenant in there. It'll be making money, covering the mortgage. They can move into their brand new, super nice custom home. And then again, in a year or 2, 3, 4 years, when that tenant moves out, they can reevaluate. If the market's better at that point, they can relist it for sale and sell it then instead of being forced to sell it now.